Hello everybody, it's Nancy News here, and today we've got a lot of broken dates today. So we don't have too much news today, so let's just get started. And probably one of the biggest news today is coming from the United States and Russia, where we've just got news that the president of the United States, Donald Trump, has officially held his first phone conversation with the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin. So Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump have officially spoke on the phone on Wednesday morning. The conversation lasted an hour and a half. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, confirmed. So Trump said that during the call he agreed with Putin to instruct his team to begin negotiations immediately. He wrote about this on his social network Truth Social. So we'll just go over the key and main points from Putin's conversation with Donald Trump. So let's go over the main points. So Donald Trump has called for the immediate halt to hostilities in Ukraine. Putin empathized the need to address the root causes of the Ukraine conflict. They discussed the Middle East issues and US-Russian bilateral relations. Putin invited Donald Trump to Moscow. Both leaders have agreed to arrange an in-person meeting. Putin supported Trump's position that it is time to work together. The Russian president agreed with Donald Trump that a long-term peace settlement in Ukraine can be achieved through negotiations. Donald Trump described the conversation with Vladimir Putin as productive. The US president confirmed that they discussed Ukraine and the Middle East. They also apparently touched upon the topic of Iranian nuclear program. Trump stated that they agreed to visit each other's country, and the last point they made is that economic relations between the US and Russia were discussed. So very interesting news. And straight after Donald Trump made his phone conversation with Vladimir Putin, he phoned up the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. So Donald Trump wrote on social media that I just spoke with the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. The conversation went very well. He, like Putin, wants to make peace. And straight after he phoned the two leaders of the two countries, he held a press conference where a lot of reporters asked how the call went. So I'll just go over some of the statements he made in this conference. So Donald Trump thinks it's not practical on Ukraine joining NATO. So Donald Trump is officially against the idea of Ukraine joining NATO. Donald Trump stated that the US has given Ukraine $350 billion, and he expects that to return to the US in natural mineral resources. Donald Trump stated that we expect to meet Vladimir Putin in Saudi Arabia or in Moscow, he said in this press conference. He also stated that he also advises Zelensky to hold presidential elections. He stated that his ratings, to put it mildly, are not very high. At some point, you'll need to have elections. So Donald Trump is very supportive of elections in Ukraine. So interesting news. And foreign ministers of Ukraine, France, Great Britain, Spain and Italy, Poland and Germany and the EU have demanded that Donald Trump involve Europe in future negotiations to end the Russian and Ukrainian conflict. We've also just got news coming from Washington DC that the Prime Minister of India has just touched down at the airport in Washington DC. So the Indian Prime Minister has just arrived in Washington DC, the capital city of America, ahead of meetings with President Donald Trump. The Prime Minister of India, Modi, stated on X, or formerly known as Twitter, that our nations will keep working closely for the benefit of our people and for a better future for our planet. That was stated by Prime Minister Modi of India, where he's expected to meet with Donald Trump. We've also gotten some news today coming from San Diego that that an attack aircraft has unfortunately crashed in San Diego. So a US naval Ea-18 attack aircraft has crashed into San Diego Bay near the Naval Air Station North Island. So both crew members of the attack aircraft successfully ejected before impact. So we can see this video here. We can see the exact moment when the Ea-18g Growler attack aircraft crashed in the San Diego Bay right here. So it seems that no one was harmed, but obviously the aircraft crashed, and that's a couple $1 million down the drain. But interesting news. We've also just got news today that the US President Donald Trump has just announced new tariffs today, so we'll get to know them tariffs later today. So later today, Donald Trump will be announcing new tariffs on maybe different countries or specific items. And the next news we'll be discussing today is coming from Russia, where we've got news that the total Russian defense spending has increased last year by 42%. So that is equivalent to $462 billion. So in comparison, the European defense budgets by comparison, including the UK and EU members, rose by almost 12% last year to 457 billion, slightly less than Moscow's spending. So Russian defense spending exceeds all of Europe combined, study finds. So the total Russian defense spending has increased by 42% in 2024, and that puts Russia ahead of all of Europe in defense spending combined. And we've also gotten some news today that Vladimir Putin has officially spoke for the first time on phone with the interim leader and president of Syria for the first time. So the key statements is that Putin has confirmed Russia's readiness to help improve the economic situation in Syria, including providing humanitarian aid to its residents. It was agreed to continue this type of useful contacts to develop a broad agenda for the development of bilateral cooperation between Russia and Syria. And apparently the Russian Federation is trying to maintain its military bases in Syria and negotiating with the new officials in Syria. So Vladimir Putin has officially spoke for the first time with the interim leader of Syria since Bashar al-Assad has fallen from Syria, and now the HTS rebel leaders have taken in control. And due to this conversation between Vladimir Putin and the president of Syria, Vladimir Putin has invited the Syrian foreign minister to visit Moscow. So interesting news. And the next news we'll be talking about today is coming from Ukraine, where we've just got news today that Zelensky has just met with the new US Treasury Secretary Bessent of the Trump administration. So the US presented Ukraine with a draft resource agreement, but however, Zelensky has not yet signed any agreement allowing the Americans to gain access to Ukrainian resources, even though the US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent brought it to Kiev yesterday. We've also gotten some news today that the UK has announced a major military aid package for Ukraine at a Ramstein meeting. So Britain is providing an additional £150 million for tanks, artillery, air-to-air missiles, and new contracts to repair critical equipment in Ukraine. This was stated by the Defence Secretary John Healey of the United Kingdom. We've also got news today that that British media has also presented a new air defence system called the Grave Hawk, designed to help Ukraine combat Russian air targets. So this British air defense system called the Grave Hawk was built in just 18 months. The system fits into a container, a shipping container, allowing it to be quickly transported by a truck. So this system uses two launchers from Soviet fighters to launch R-73 guided missiles, which Ukraine has a huge stockpile from the Soviet Union times. In addition, it is reported that the Grave Hawk defense system is equipped with an electronic module with passive guidance for target detection, which makes the system less vulnerable to detection by traditional methods. And we've also got news that two systems are apparently already in use by the Ukrainian military and have reportedly already been successfully used on the front lines. So apparently another 15 Grey Hawk systems will be delivered to Ukraine this year. So the British media has presented this new air defense system called the Grey Hawk, which it's kind of secretly camouflaged as a civilian shipping container, but it has anti-air missiles in it. So interesting news. We've also just got news today that the Ukrainian Council for Security and Defense has just imposed sanctions against the former president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko. So sanctions were initiated and approved by the sitting president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. Poroshenko was his opponent in the second round of his last presidential elections in Ukraine. So the sanctions have officially been hit on the ex-president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko. And the next news we'll be talking about today is coming from Germany, and more specifically coming from Munich. We've got news today that a person in Munich has ran over a huge group of pedestrians in the city of Munich, and as a result of this Munich car ramming, one person has tragically died. At least 15 people have been injured. The German media reports that at least 28 people have gotten injured after a driver drove his car into pedestrians in Munich, Germany. The driver has been confirmed as an asylum seeker from Afghanistan. Sorry if I can't actually probably show you any of this footage, because obviously this goes it can't be allowed on YouTube. But if you do want to actually see the footage of things that I can't post on YouTube, you can actually join my Telegram channel in the link in the description below. But let's just continue on this. So the driver who drove into the huge crowd of Germans was an asylum seeker from Afghanistan. The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz commented on the Munich attacker as this perpetrator cannot be expected to have any mercy. He must be punished and he must leave the country. So very sad news coming from Germany today. We've also got some news today coming from Italy, and more specifically coming from Sicily. So the Italian an Italian volcano has popped off. So a lava has erupted down snow-capped Mount Etna in Sicily. So we can see here in the bottom left corner, we can see this huge volcano has erupted in Italy, triggering a red aviation warning in the area. So a volcano has erupted in Sicily, causing a red aviation warning in the area. We've also got news that Algeria is the first to buy Russia's latest 5th generation fighter jet, the Su-57E fighter jet. So the Algerian Air Force said that it will receive the aircraft at the end of 2025, adding that its military personnel are being trained in Russia. So Algeria will be the first country to buy Russian Su-57 fighter jets. We've also got some news coming from Israel today that Benjamin Netanyahu has threatened to end the ceasefire in Gaza and order troop buildup in Gaza. So in a video statement, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared that if Hamas does not return Israeli hostages by Saturday at noon, the ceasefire will end and the Israeli Defense Forces will resume intense fighting until Hamas is completely defeated. Benjamin Netanyahu stated that after Hamas announced a delay in hostages releases, he ordered the Israeli Defense Forces to mobilize troops inside and around Gaza in preparations for renewed combat. This action is already underway and will be completed soon, he added. So Benjamin Netanyahu has sent an ultimatum to Gaza and Hamas that if Israeli hostages are not released, if all Israeli hostages are not released by Saturday, all hell will break loose and Israel will renew its offensive in Gaza. And the last news we've got on today is coming from the Parcel Islands in the South China Sea. So we've got news today that Chinese fighter jets actually fire flares just 30 meters from Australian Air Force reconnaissance aircraft that allegedly violated the airspace over the Seychelles Islands in the South China Sea. So Australia has condemned the Chinese pilots' actions as unsafe and unprofessional. So the Australian military aircraft allegedly violated the airspace of China's islands, or the Parcel Islands, and apparently the Chinese ministry announced that we took measures to repel them. So the Parcel Islands here are this is disputed territory in the South China Sea between Vietnam, China, and Taiwan. So apparently, an Australian jet flew over or near these Parcel Islands, these islands here, and apparently a Chinese jet shot flares at it. So very interesting news, and that's all the news I've gotten for you today. I am Non-Scene News. I'll try and provide you news that medias around the world do not show you. I do these videos hopefully daily, so consider subscribing and liking. If you want to actually help me personally, you can donate in the link of the description below via PayPal, or you can actually join as a member of the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye.